Welcome to You Are the Guest, a weekly show where you can be the guest and tell people what you and your friends and neighbors think about news, events, and issues of the day. It's part talk show, part opinion poll, part reality show, and a whole lot of fun. And it's completely dependent upon your participation as a guest. To be considered as a guest for a future show, check out the website at www.youaretheguest.com for details. Now here's your program host, Bill Grady.
Greetings from the great city of Fort Dodge, Iowa. I'm Bill Grady, and welcome to show number 10 of You Are the Guest, a show where we talk to everyday people just like you and me about their lives and the issues of the day. Our guest today is from Los Angeles, California. Chance, welcome to the program.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Great.
Tell me about yourself and tell me about the things that you do.
Well, I'm a solo artist. I record everything myself at home. I'm an independent artist. And I don't know, I write songs, I record them, and I want people to enjoy them. I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Are you originally from Los Angeles?
No, actually, I grew up in Orlando. So I came out to, for the proverbial pot of gold a few years back, and been just kind of toiling away in the Los Angeles industry ever since.
So what's been your first impression of the Los Angeles music business?
Well, I guess you could say it's the same as any other music business. It's just, the funny thing about the music business is it's very, very wild, wild west. There are very few rules apply, and anytime a rule does apply, then it gets broken at the very next day or morning. And, I've kind of heard just about everything. Nothing surprises me anymore. I guess you could say nothing shocks me anymore. But I guess it's just a big pond, and that was the difference. At least when I moved between Orlando and Los Angeles, I would rather be a small fish in a big pond than a big fish in a small pond. Because that way I can grow. So
what was the biggest surprise?
I guess you sometimes can be a little struck at the audacity of people, at least in the industry,
or at least the bluntness of everybody.
No, not so much the bluntness, just the. How could you possibly sleep at night after doing such a thing? That kind of stuff. At least at first, it was more along those lines. There's not too much idealism left in rock and roll or anything in the music industry. There's a little bit, but it's far and few between.
So, do you come from a musical family?
No, actually, I was the first of my kind. When I was 7. My mom looked at me and said, it was both my parents. They looked at me and they said, do you want to play piano? Do you want us to buy you a piano? Well, I looked at it as, sure, if you're buying me something, I have no problem with that. So, about a week later, the movers came in, they moved the piano in, and I go, okay, that's really cool. I'll see you later. And I started to walk out like I was going to go play outside, right? And she goes, oh, no, you have to practice every day. Your lessons start on Saturday. So I guess you could call that a bit of a shock. So started lessons. I started half an hour a day every day, and my mom was a taskmaster. She was very, very meticulous about me practicing every day. And the days that I didn't practice, because let's say I had soccer practice or let's say I had too much homework, she would tack it on to the next day. So when I started having to practice an hour and a half a day, if I missed one, it was up to 3 hours the next day, and sometimes my weekends were lost, But I think what ended up happening is I really developed a sense of discipline, and I don't regret a second of it. She taught me to focus, and I'll never forget that,
So what was the first song that you ever wrote?
I guess the first song I ever wrote was a cheeseball tune called Alone in the Darkness, maybe when I was 17. And to any fan who's listening to this, no, it's not available.
You can't find it anywhere on the internet?
No. It's horrible. So I'll leave it at that.
Do you remember the first CD you ever bought?
The first CD I ever bought, that would be The Cure, Disintegration. Absolutely do remember that.
What's the top story in Los Angeles today?
Well, certainly Katrina's on everybody's mind. There's a little bit of, actually, I was just reading an article today about the fact that there's a bunch of very, very old school levees that allow Southern California to get the water from up north, because that's actually where we get our water from. And I was reading an article about how they might try to make a canal to go around the levees, but it was a real kind of controversial topic when it was first brought up, and the voters turned it down back in like 1982. So now they might bring it up again. I guess you could say that's some of what's being discussed. Another thing too cool is for the last like 5 or 6 years, they've really started to develop downtown. Downtown, in a lot of ways, similar to myself growing up in Orlando, you just didn't go downtown after 5 o'clock. And same's here in Los Angeles. And you're just finding more and more stuff there. Ever since they moved the Lakers downtown instead of in Inglewood, now downtown is just thriving. And they have all these new projects set up, these new development projects that are really supposed to just open it up. And I'm just a big fan of that. I like the liveliness of New York, and I think Los Angeles could be capable of having something like that.
So Governor Schwarzenegger has announced his re-election bid. How are people seeing that in L.A.?
I think with a bit of a snore. You know, I mean, I didn't vote for him only, and not because I was a Gray Davis fan, but only because I believe unless there's malfeasance involved, you shouldn't do mob rules when it comes to the election. And if someone's elected to office for 4 years, he should serve his 4 years. And you know, and I would feel the same way if Schwarzenegger was duly elected for a full 4 years, no matter how much I liked or disliked him. Same with Bush. No matter how much I liked or disliked him, they serve 4 years and they do their time because the electorate has spoken. If we went on a mob rules mentality where we had special elections anytime somebody pissed us off, well, that would just be sort of the rule of anarchy, in my opinion. So I think what's funny about Arnold deciding to run again, not so much deciding to run again, deciding to choose to announce his re-election bid at a time when he has a lot of stuff on the ballot shows a bit of weakness on his part. You know, that he has to sort of invigorate his base and go, oh, I'm going to still be around. And I don't know, it just smacks of Politico that sort of, I don't know, recently I've become very, very turned off to.
From satellite television, I get some of the California stations, and it looks like the governor is just taking a hit from the firefighters and the teachers on a daily basis.
Yeah, recently. I mean, the teachers union here, from what I understand, they're supposed to be really powerful, and same with the nurses union, the firefighters, and you know, it's just, I hate to say it's hilariously ironic because the bottom line is, regardless of who's right and who's wrong in all this, it's the voters and the people of California who are getting screwed here. But you know, Schwarzenegger comes in with any sort of political cloud that he had, going, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that, but he adopted a very confrontational style, not unlike our president, and he likes to bash people, and okay, he might at the root of it all be saying some truth, but it's just in the way you couch it, and he's just pissing off a lot of people. So he's exactly at the same approval ratings that the guy before him was, and he had a special election to get him thrown out. So it's just sort of silly that I guess Schwarzenegger adopted the same tone, but just from a different platform or a different party, so to speak. You know, I believe that you should. I really would prefer that people adopt more of a centrist policy where they came in and said, listen, you know, it's not so much can we get along, but can we do this right? And the only way we can do this right is getting a majority opinion, which is right down the middle. You know, the heck with the extremists on either side, is my opinion.
That's a very good point. You talked about the top story in LA being that of Katrina. So what are people's views of both what happened as far as the weather and the tragedy there, and also the relief effort afterwards? Well,
I've grown up in Florida, so I understand hurricanes. I lived through 2 or 3 of them myself. My mother's from Honduras, and there's been a couple of hurricanes ravage her home country. So I understand what hurricanes do, and I don't take it lightly, which is kind of funny that I decided to move to a state that has earthquakes. But I guess that's me digressing a little bit. It's pretty obvious that I think at all levels, people just completely fouled this up. It's not just Bush. It's not just Mike Brown. It's not just Nagin, the mayor. It's everybody. They just screwed up, and it frightens me that with Homeland Security and FEMA being folded into Homeland Security. Under the Clinton years, I think his name was James Lee Witt. That guy had it nailed. I think they learned from Andrew. There was a lot of mistakes done in Andrew when Andrew decimated large portions of Miami, but they figured it out. They did Northridge when we had our earthquake in 1994 in Northridge. Honestly, Bill, it's the most frightened I've ever been in my entire life. That's 30 seconds. I didn't think I was going to die, but I seriously saw it as a possibility, But FEMA came in and they did right. The whole city just we were reinvigorated in a lot of ways. We came together. We went downtown. We went to places that were trash. I lived 6 miles from the epicenter. So to have it just 2 days after the hurricane, or the day after the hurricane kicked in, Bush is having fundraisers in San Diego, and the FEMA guy didn't even pay attention. I just think it was just messed up from day one. And then I hear more recently that Nagin had the opportunity to get a bunch of people on a bunch of buses that were sitting around, now are underwater, but were sitting around at the time that he could have at least evacuated people. This is life and death here. And everybody said it was a Category 5. It's like these guys weren't even turning on the news, and that's frustrating. That's, as a voter, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, that's frustrating.
I have also lived through a tornado, so
right.
I know what that's like. And in my neighborhood, our house was destroyed. The neighborhood was destroyed. We had to deal with looters. We had to deal with the National Guard, and that was something that you had about 5 minutes warning with. Hurricane Katrina, they were talking for days.
They had at least 48 hours. Hell, the earthquake, I had 0 seconds. Bill, I was a poor, starving musician at the time, as opposed to just a slightly poor, slightly starving musician now. And I was sleeping on a single mattress on the floor, and I couldn't even lift. I barely got into the kneeled, crouched position. That's how powerful this thing was. I couldn't even get to the door jamb, to stand in the door jamb. That's what they all tell you to do, right? So I totally understand what you're saying. And it's shocking, and it's not. I don't blame the people at all, because if there were a bunch of buses sitting around, they could have gotten them out. I blame government. I think they messed up.
Back to music. Tell me about the audition process for Velvet Revolver.
Velvet Revolver. Well, I had a friend of a friend who was a manager who I think was somewhat involved with them. This was even before they had a name, and they somehow, this particular friend just happened to be playing my old band's music in his management office, and Duff McKagan, the bass player, came in and goes, "Holy hell, who's this guy?" And so I get a call Sunday night. I'm lying down on the couch, just kind of basically about to doze off. It's about 10 o'clock at night, and he calls me up and goes, "Do you want to audition for Slash, Duff, and all these guys?" And I go, "Well, I'm kind of in another band, because I'm not the kind of guy to just sit here and jump ship." And he goes, "Well, you can do both at once." And I went, "You know what? Just do it so I can call my friends in Florida and giggle about it." I didn't really care whether I made it or not. I know a lot of people won't believe that, but it's true. I just thought it would be kind of fun. So he goes, "I have 4 pieces of music, and there's no lyrics, there's no melodies. And mind you, it's 10 o'clock on a Sunday, and he lives up in Van Nuys, or at least he works up in Van Nuys, and I'm down in Los Angeles, which is, about a 30-minute drive with no traffic, 25-minute drive, right?" So he goes, "Why don't you come on up and grab the CD, because they'd like to audition you on Thursday." I just started laughing. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I have to come up with lyrics and melodies to 4 songs?" But that's what they wanted to do, and I went, "All right, sure, whatever." It wasn't. I wasn't time critical. So I got the CD. I started listening to it. I actually did like the songs, and I wrote some what I thought were fun melodies and lyrics to it, and I guess Thursday they had to delay the audition. I was auditioning on Friday, and that was it. That was it. So I guess 6 months later, they get Scott Weiland or whatever, and I hear a friend of mine calls me up and said that the guys from Revolver were talking about me on KLOS, which is a big station here in Los Angeles. And I just had to laugh, and I couldn't figure out why. And apparently, they really liked my voice. They really liked the melodies that I've written, but they just didn't think that the chemistry was there. And I suspect it's because they're a little more 80s rock, and I'm a little more, I guess you could say, 90s rock, So that was the extent of it. I mean, it was fun. They were very nice guys. And I was actually really shocked and surprised at how amazingly tight they were. They were solid.
So what you hear on the album is actually the way that they play it?
Pretty much. As a matter of fact, the music that they gave me was live at their rehearsals, and it sounded recorded.
Wow.
It sounded tracked. It was phenomenal. In terms of performance, just amazing.
Tell me about any celebrity stories you can tell.
Oh, I don't know too many. I guess I met Jack Lemmon at the dog park.
Was he a cool guy to meet?
Yeah, he was real nice. He's a lot older than you suspect. At the time, it was just maybe I guess 5 or 6 years ago. He hadn't passed away yet, and I guess my first impression of him was he looked old, or older than I thought he looked. His dog actually introduced himself to my dog, and then that's how we sort of ended up saying hello. And I just said, "Hi, my name is Chance," and he goes, "Hi, I'm Jack." And I think we talked film for like 30 minutes, and he just kind of walked away and kept playing with his dog, and that was about it.
Time for the final 5 questions. What sports franchise could L.A. live without? The Lakers, the Dodgers, the Clippers, or the Kings?
Well, it's a knee-jerk reaction to say the Clippers, but the Clippers weren't half bad last year. But the Kings, they've at least been to the finals a couple of times, or at least once. And Gretzky played here. I don't know. I mean, hockey's in a weird position right now. It's definitely not an A-tier sport, or hasn't been in a long time. So I guess I have no idea. I guess I would say the Kings.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
What's my favorite thing to cook? Anything and everything. I love French food, Spanish food, any kind of Latin food. And I guess my mom's arroz con pollo, which is chicken and rice, is a pretty amazing dish. I'm actually making that tonight.
What's the best L.A. night spot for hanging out?
Well, I mean, I guess there's a few that I like. I guess if you're seeing a band, there's a place called The Gig that I adore. The people who work there are amazing people and kind of make you keep the faith that people are actually in it for music and not just money and draw and stuff like that. And then there's a restaurant that my wife loves called El Coyote. And, honestly, I just enjoy hanging out with her, so it's fun to go there. It's really, well, I'm going to piss off a lot of Angelinos here. I think it's really bad Mexican food. But the margaritas are so good, by the time you're halfway through your margarita, it becomes really good Mexican food. I have no idea why, it just does. And it's very lively and enjoyable, and I guess that would be my answer.
Tell me about the L.A. band scene.
Okay, the LA band scene is almost it's existent and non-existent at the exact same time. There are thousands and thousands of bands who play here, and none of them know each other. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic, because there are little pockets of possibilities. There's a little songwriter genre that sometimes seems to circulate, and they'll play like the same 2 or 3 clubs, but they won't go see the rock bands. And the rock bands won't go see them. And even within the rock band genre, there is no real definitive, like, I know this guy, and this guy, I mean, I could sit here and tell you a couple of bands that are friends of mine, but I don't go see them, not because I don't like them, not because I don't support them, but because it just seems like, as disconnected as this town is, you don't end up supporting each other because you're so busy trying to keep your head above water just to support yourself. If I were to say, one of my friends' bands is a band called Safety, a really cool band, or a band called Ragsy, or this singer-songwriter named Sally Smithwick, or this crazy comedian guy named Sexy Joe Lavelle, or one of my favorite kind of trip-hop techno guy named RV, or Sebastian Cesare. He goes by Alternate Egos. These are all guys that I like, but it's kind of like my version of iTunes, It's like they're far and few between. They don't really connect together,
So tell me about the biggest misconception about Hollywood.
I think the biggest misconception about Hollywood is that all it does is party all night long. You would be surprised at how quickly this town goes to sleep. It's shocking. You go to New York. You go to let's just use New York as an example. When you're in New York, if you want to go eat Thai food at 3:00 in the morning, you can go eat Thai food at 3:00 in the morning. If you want to go to a speakeasy kind of party, you can do that, and it seems lively. Here, I swear to you, at midnight, it just all falls apart. And honestly, and sometimes 11 p.m. I'm not saying that there's not stuff open. I'm not saying there's not stuff available. It's just as a vibrant scenario, it kind of just goes, I got to get up in the morning,
Sounds like a big, small town.
It's very much like that. It really is. And I think it's just because of the space. We're not piled up on top of each other. So you have a lot of pockets that can really be like a little town. Like I have a friend who lives in Studio City. Well, Studio City is technically just 20 minutes away if there's no traffic. If there's plenty of traffic, it could be 45 minutes away, an hour away, and they're on the other side of the mountain. So to me, they're like, you're way over, you're in the valley. I'm not going to go out there. It's just because it's the distance that kills us. My best friend lives down in Orange County. That takes, with good traffic, an hour to get there, So it's difficult to connect.
Let's go ahead and play Ask Bill 3. This is where we turn the microphone over to you, and you get to ask me 3 questions about anything. So
Okay.
Fire away.
All right, let's see what I got here. All right, here's the question and the point, and then the question. You have done one thing in your life that you believe everyone in the world you will ever meet should at least try. In other words, you have one recommendation to give that you've already done and no one else has. What is it?
I'll answer it in 2 parts because I think one is kind of self-serving and one is another way that changed my life. First of all, I'm a big motorcycle fanatic. So for me to be on a motorcycle at about 165 miles an hour, everybody should try that at least once.
Exactly. There you go. That's perfect.
Now, here's my other question, and this is something not so much a question, but my other answer, and that is when I was just starting off in the radio business, I joined the local JCs.
Okay.
And one of our things that we did was we did this promotion called Coats for Kids. And what we did is we collected coats from stores and organizations for kids that couldn't afford new coats for the wintertime. I still remember the faces on those kids as they got new coats. Right. And how big of a deal that was to have a new coat for the wintertime right before Christmas. So
Right.
So I think everybody...
what's a fascinating thing for me when it comes to charity is a lot of people think that it's selfless activity. I don't believe that it's selfless at all. I think it's both selfless and selfish. I get a kick out of doing things for other people. Why not?
Yeah.
Why can't I feel happy doing this? And a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to do charity, it's a pain in the ass. Well, yeah, it might be a pain in the ass, but dude, you get so much out of it.
What's number 2?
So then we move on to the second one?
Number 2.
Okay. What is the one thing in life you could have gotten in trouble for that you didn't do, but now, looking back, you wish that you went ahead and done it? Here I mean the concept of regret when it comes to bending or breaking the rules.
The funny thing that comes to mind is that I really can't think of too many regrets. I think, if I think about, a couple of things like, well, I should have done this or shouldn't. My mantra in life is always, I'd rather be sorry for something that I did do instead of something that I didn't do. So in a way, it's kind of worked the opposite. I've probably been more regretful for the things that I've done as opposed for the things that I didn't do.
Right. It's character right there,
Yeah. So I really can't tell you that I have many regrets of just saying, boy, I wish I would have, gone out on a limb and done that, because I've actually gone out on a limb and done that. And sometimes you get your butt kicked and you go, okay, let's not do that again.
Right. That's interesting. That's a good answer. All right. So number 3, you ready?
Fire away.
Okay. Give me 3 words to describe your personality or your character, and of these words, which of them trace to your father and which of them trace to your mother?
3 words would be loyal, loving,
and who does that trace to?
And
who
caring.
Does loyal trace to?
It actually goes to both parents.
Okay.
My parents were very instrumental in my life. They're incredibly good parents. My father's passed away, but my mother's still living, and both of them to this day are strong influences. So,
right.
Every once in a while, I will get something that slaps me in the face and says, "Okay, that's your mom talking."
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is that kind of stuff.
Okay. Here's what I find. I think that both my parents were loyal. I think that both of them were caring, and both of them were very loving. But every once in a while, I will catch myself. Probably the mannerisms of my dad come back to me more often, and maybe it's because of its passing that I notice it more. For example, I never quite saw the resemblance between my father and I when he was alive.
Wow.
But I start seeing it now in the mirror, and it is that I have my father's eyes.
Wow.
And so, the old thing is, if you want to see your dad, just go look in the mirror.
Well, wait a few years too.
Exactly. And then every once in a while, I'll catch myself in a catchphrase or saying something, and I go, okay, who does that sound like? And
right.
it's more my dad. Both my parents had a strong influence, but as my mother would say, you are your father's son.
Right. That's interesting. It's funny for me. I have to approach it differently. And the reason is because I'm adopted. So the only impact my parents can have is sociological, and but not necessarily so. Sometimes when I find myself getting angry and I grit my teeth a certain way, that's how my dad would grit his teeth when he was angry with me.
So you learned things from your adoptive parents?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. 100%. The way my dad smiles when it's kind of like a half smile, that's him. I do that, and I'll catch myself laughing or smiling that way. And I just my mom's laugh, absolutely, I get it from her.
You are
her sort of spirit and enthusiasm. Totally get it from her.
You are the child of the people that raise you.
Absolutely, 100%.
Deep stuff, my friend.
Thank you.
Very deep.
And on that note,
that's right. Let's talk about your new single download. Let's talk about how people can find your new music and where they can go to find it. Tell a little bit about the song.
Well, my latest is a song called Man on a Mission. But I do have another one coming out in about, hopefully a week. I try to release my singles once a month or once every 3 weeks, something like that. And that one I haven't released the name of just because all my fans on my message board really want to know, so I'm not going to tell them. I'm just playing with them right now. But you can go to mynameischance.com, which is my official website, and I have a store there where you can download all of my singles for $1. Or after I get 5 singles, I basically compile them and release a CD. So I have 2 CDs out. One of them is called 1 through 5, and the second one's called 6 through 10. So you can check those out. And then once I get to 15, I'll be releasing the third one. So I'm on my 11th single right now, with single number 12 coming out in a week or so.
Let's talk about the world premiere of the songs that we're going to be playing, and also let's talk about the simulcast that's going to be coming up on October 9th. How did you come up with the idea for the simulcast?
Well, I was always a big fan of Live Aid, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of a simulcast. So I went, hey, why don't we do this for podcasting? Let's try this for podcasting. So I literally, just from a very, very organic level, I emailed a couple of podcasters that I knew that were already supporting my music, and kind of asked them, hey, what do you think about me doing something like this? Has it ever been done? And they both wrote back and go, hey, that sounds fun, and let's yeah, sure. So in July, I performed at that club I was telling you about called The Gig, and me and my backing band, the choir, we performed a 45-minute set, and I ended up getting a really good recording of it. So October 9th, will be the very first, the world historical first simulcast concert podcast. And right now we're up to 33 podcasters and internet radio stations who are taking part. And on the 9th, they will all release or stream the music at the same time. I haven't figured out the time exactly, because a couple of the podcasters are in, say, New Zealand, one of them is in Scotland, and the rest are sort of Canada and the United States. So I kind of want to make sure that everyone gets a fair shot. For podcasting, it doesn't really matter so much, because you can subscribe to iTunes and get it whenever you want. But with the internet radio stations that are doing it, I kind of want to time it to where it works for everybody,
The 2 songs that we have today are actually world premieres, because these are actually live cuts from that concert. We've got Forgive and Forget and Hip Hop High. So tell me about those 2 songs.
Forgive and Forget is an up-tempo tune and self-explanatory, very sort of pop-oriented and fun. Hip Hop High is one of my personal favorites, just because I feel it's me attempting to strike out in an original way. A lot of the way the song was constructed was built upon stuff that I'd kind of previously written but just didn't really pan out. There is I guess you could say there's technically an alternate melody and alternate chords, but it never worked. It just didn't work. And one day, when I first got Pro Tools and I was playing with Reason, which is my sequencing software, I just happened upon a thing, and I started this little just this kind of like odd little thing, this little sequencing melody, and I started playing piano chords underneath it. And while I'm playing piano chords, I just put it on a loop. So I started looking through lyric sheets, and then I found my Hip Hop High lyrics. So I just kind of started humming the melody. The old melody, it certainly didn't work, so I just looked at the words and came up with a new melody on the spot, and that's how it was written. And it just grew from there. I added the guitar parts later, put in the drum parts, and that's the piece that you hear now.
Who's the female vocalist on Hip Hop High?
Live or in the studio?
Live.
Live is actually the guitar player's wife. I have 2 guitar players live, and it's a guy named Gus Cesare and his wife, Amy. She was in the crowd that night, and she's got a great voice, and what I do is I just hand the mic to her. So right after that second chorus, I literally just hand her the mic. She's still in the crowd, and then she just hands it back to me when I start up the song again. So it's fun.
Incredible. Well, for everybody that's listening now, we're going to go ahead and play the 2 songs. These are the world premiere songs of Forgive and Forget and Hip Hop High. Chance, thank you so much for being our guest on You Are the Guest, and I hope you've enjoyed today.
Bill, I completely appreciate it, and thank you for supporting my music and for doing such a great thing that your podcast is doing. It's great.
And if anybody wants to find out more about your music, how do they do so?
just go to mynameischance.com and yeah, just sign up to the email list there. You can email me at chance@mynameischance.com. I'm a pretty personable artist, I would think. I like to communicate with my fans. I enjoy that kind of, rapport, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as it's physically possible until, basically I fall over from exhaustion,
It's great music. So here's a couple of treats for everybody. Forgive and Forget and Hip Hop High. From the great city of Fort Dodge, Iowa, I'm Bill Grady. Thanks for listening.
It's called Forgive and Forget. Got up the nerve to try to get away. Amen. Maybe she dared you to make you move, but you had to open up your mouth again. And the words you spill out make you look real good. Don't you know when it's time to give up, my friend? To give up, to give in. Maybe I'll forgive, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't forget. Maybe I'll forgive, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't. Yeah! Hey! Amen. Walk down the street, trip, a trip again. Amen. Don't look now, your life is gone fast. You wanna open up your mouth again. You find what you look, they will take you away. But it looks so sweet and saccharine. If it's true, let's again. Maybe I'll forget, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't forget. Maybe I'll forget, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't forget. Hey, maybe I'll forget, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't forget. Maybe I'll forget, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. Sorry too. Words would never use. Try to breathe, you choke on your own views. But they're watching you to see if you'll come through. They think you love that are feeling blue. Maybe I'm a kid, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't forget. Maybe I'll forget, but I won't forget. No, I won't forget. No, I won't forget. The song's called Hip Hop High. Well, they're fighting for air when it's already there. We stretch our necks to stare, but they're too quick to compare. Hold the body for ransom, 'cause the mind is a billionaire. Then drop into a hip-hop flying solo, maybe go no, spin around till the leader starts to follow. Wait for light and for some kind of say-so, spin around till the leader starts to follow now. The dead presidents care, see the corpses everywhere. In the streets past the unfair. You look around, it's already there. The next in line takes things over. So pull out the questionnaire, then drop into a hip-hop. Flying solo, maybe go no. Spin around till the leader starts to follow. Wait for light up for some kind of say-so. Spin around till the leader starts to follow. Flying solo, maybe go no. Spin around till the leader starts to follow. Wait for light up for some kind of say-so. Spin around till the leader starts to get up again, you know you wanna get up. Look up at the stars again, you know you wanna get up. Take another shot to win, place a bet, then take another chance, shake it off. Go for broke, show what you got. Jackpot, flying solo, make it go no. Stick around, leader starts to follow. Wait for light and for some kind of say-so. Spin around till the leader starts to follow. Flying solo, make it go no. Spin around till the leader starts to follow. Wait for light and for some kind of say-so. Spin around till the leader starts to follow now. Thank you very much.
This is a Radio Chance announcement. We interrupt this podcast to bring you a special announcement. You Are the Guest podcast, in cooperation with countless other podcasters and internet radio stations around the globe, bring to you, for the first time ever in the history of the world, a concert simulcast podcast featuring, recorded live in Los Angeles, California, Chance and the Choir. Stay tuned to this broadcast for further instructions.